I know a woman who dared to be different. She struggled and lived for God's sake. She did what she felt was right, despite the adverse voices. You're young and beautiful, and he's never going to get better, they told her. But she was different. She loved, and she only wanted love. She stayed true to a man circumstanced by illness, and she worked endlessly to keep a roof above their 3 daughters. She was my nana, my grandmother. Today we're talking about daring to be different from a female perspective. Joining us, we have guest Noreen Syed. She's in a field where we don't see that many females entering into. So let's talk to her. Hello, Noreen.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here with you. And how are you feeling today?
I'm great, thank you as well.
Yeah. So can you please explain to us, what is your job title and what do you do?
Sure. By title, I'm an open source lead at Microsoft Canada. That really distills down into 3 different things. One is I work to make sure Microsoft's customers are aware that you can run non-Windows based workloads and applications on our Microsoft Cloud platform, which is Azure. Sorry, I'm throwing a bunch of technical terms at you. The second one is I work with our field, so the broader team, to enable them to do the same for our customers. And the last one is I have revenue accountability to grow the business in Canada.
Okay, so how many females are there in your team? And how many females do you interact with professionally on a daily basis?
My immediate team, I'm very lucky to say I think about 50% of our team of 14 are women. Broadly across the organization, I think we're at just under 30% that are women. And it's true, in the tech industry, there are still visibly less women than men.
And so when you were pursuing this career in the tech industry, were there sort of any norms that you went against? I mean, like we've briefly mentioned that there are less females in the tech industry. You can talk more about this, but like even any other ones. Because just in general, I feel like when we are pursuing a career, for most of us, we are going against some sort of norm, or we do meet some sort of resistance. It could be from the people in our family, or it could be friends, or it could be, you know, anyone around us. So like, what was your story like when you were pursuing your career?
For sure. I mean, I recall applying to the University of Waterloo for their computer engineering program. And when I got my acceptance letter, I could see it on my parents' face. You know, I come from a Pakistani background. Oh no, sending the daughter away to school, she's not going to be living at home. But I mean, I'm very lucky and fortunate that my parents have been super supportive of me throughout the journey. This was one dinner conversation, discussion on should we send her, should we not? Okay, she really loves this. She's crying her eyes out for getting accepted. We've got to support her. And I mean, the second one, I think you've touched on it. Growing up, there have been less women, but it's actually a conversation that I reflect on now. And I don't think that's common for all women. Some young girls do look for other female role models growing up, and it's very important to have that. I mean, the thought crossed my mind, but I never let it deter me from pursuing what I really wanted to do.
Like the fact that there weren't as many females in the tech industry, like you didn't really let that take you away.
But I certainly took notice as a young woman growing up, like, wow, this, you know, I'm sort of one of only in my computer science class, or one of 2-3 girls. In engineering school and university, I think I was 10 out of 200, you know, part of a group of 10 women. So I think it's generally the trend, but I think there's a lot in the tech industry, women and men, that are working to change that. So that's the good news.
Okay. So we're talking about daring to be different today. And in North American society, I think we do encourage individuality. We encourage you know, young people to be yourself, to be different. What is the real importance of being different, of resisting conformity?
I think it's important to, one, hopefully you're not chasing it at it, I'm going to get out of the house and be different. But hopefully what you're doing is, I'm going to go make a difference. I'm going to go pursue my dreams and my passion. And then I'm going to go really, really be great at it. And I think when you look at daring to be different from that perspective, that it's about making an impact to your immediate family, community, broader set of organizations that you may work for and the people that they service, then that's definitely something that one should do. And I think that the North Star to guide you in that journey is, what am I passionate about and what gets me excited to get out of bed in the morning to go do this.
So it's not so much of you have to be different, or, you know, like you said, chasing the idea of being different, because that's almost a little like problematic if that becomes your focus. It's more just recognizing what it is that you like to do and going after that, despite whether there are like adverse voices or people maybe trying to hold you back. It's just trying to understand what it is that you want to do and going out and doing it.
Of course, and I think the second part of it is also not being afraid of that individuality. So I think just by human nature, we all come from diverse backgrounds, families, upbringing, and values. And that diversity is a good thing. So we shouldn't be afraid to showcase that. So to your point, sometimes there's these voices in our head that tell us, you know, maybe I shouldn't share this idea. But if it's an idea, share it. And that's where you can discuss and decide what you're going to actually execute on. But at idea stage, I think everything is fair game.
Okay, so next we have a question from our team, and they ask, working in a male-dominated industry, do you feel you have to make an extra effort to get noticed or be recognized?
It's a great question. I think there's certainly things women need to be conscious of that we do. So hopefully they're not considered as extra effort, because it would be kind of unfair to think I have to work extra harder just because I'm a female. But there's certainly things to be conscious of, and I'll give you a few examples. There's been studies, and I've actually observed it at work myself, and through a fortunate series of career workshops, skilling workshops, I've changed and intentionally been aware of those behaviors in myself. So if you walk into a boardroom, sometimes there's seats right around the center table, and there's also seats at the back, and women tend to opt to sit in the back, even if there's tons of spots. Or, even if you walk in and it's a full boardroom and there's that one spot and then there's some opportunity to go at the back, they'll choose the back seat. So I think you have to make a conscious effort to go sit at the table. I don't know what's going through our heads. Do we think we're not worthy of sitting at the table, but make an effort to sit at the table? Another example is often in work meetings and settings, women will just kind of volunteer and opt to take notes. Now, I love taking notes. But I don't think women should feel they are the designated note taker for every single meeting. I take notes when I want to take them for myself. Sometimes I opt to do them for the meetings, and at other times I see the email that comes in after that someone else has taken and chosen to capture. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking notes, don't get me wrong. But if ladies do, please do make it a point to stop, reflect, and listen to the content in the meeting and speak up about your ideas, because then the whole meeting went by and all you did was take notes and didn't speak up. And that's what intentionally women do need to do to feel heard, right? And make sure they are heard. Yeah.
And so when you do notice these things within yourself, like what sort of helps you to, like what is it that makes you like, oh, okay, I'm actually going to sit at the table, or next time I'm going to sit at the table? Like, what do you think encourages you? What do you tell yourself? Like, just so maybe it might help the ladies out there.
Yeah, I mean, the sitting at the table was something one of the workshops raised, and I didn't know it until that point, and I realized, wow. I mean, it's a split-second autopilot decision. You walk into a room and you don't even notice, and you're kind of used to going and sitting. But the next time moving forward, when I started going to the rooms, I always opted to look for an empty seat at the table. So that's one change. In terms of speaking up, when I'm taking notes, again, like I'm listening to stuff, and as soon as I have a thought, I just look for the right opportunity or say to add to that, or just to extend on what so and so said. Like, there's those sort of nice flow transition sentences you can use, or if you're just an easy person that where you just kind of like to speak out, then you can absolutely do that as well. I think just don't let that voice make you hesitant. When you speak with confidence, and then the rest will be okay. It'll just fall into place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And then I guess we'll go back to what we began the conversation with today, and that was female role models. And my female role model is my grandmother, and I'd like to ask you, who is your female role model?
Sure. I have some immediate ones, and they're more sort of women in the industry and tech related. There is an enterprise vice president at Microsoft. Her name is Peggy Johnson. And I really relate to her because she's had an earlier career path similar to mine. She's kind of come back from an engineering background. So that's somebody who I look to. Additionally, you know, if I may share, I think it is really important for young women to have lots of female role models. And while growing up, that wasn't a deterrent for me. I think what we often find in textbooks or in schools is a bunch of mentions of innovators and inventors that are male. And that's not an intentional, but it's just over the series, a lot of our literature refers to it.
Yeah.
So I have a 10-year-old sister, and I've gotten 2 of these books. There's tons of them available on Amazon or your favorite reading service. But the 2 that I got for her, one is Women in Science, and it's 50, I think, innovators, inventors, and trailblazers that have changed the world. And another one is Wonder Women, 25 women who've changed history. And I'm doing this because I think the more women read about other women accomplishing great things, it kind of gives them encouragement, and you never know which one of them is going to be a role model for that little girl.
Well, thank you. And you shared this with your sister, you said?
I did, yeah. I've gotten these books for her.
That's very nice.
I mean, there and since then, lately, I think we're again in a fortunate time where there's a lot more of these because the industry is encouraging a lot of women to be in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math fields.
Yeah. All right. So we're just going to take a short break, and we're going to talk a little bit more about daring to be different from a female perspective. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the My Voice show on EOS. You're with your host, Aisha Heather. Before the break, we were speaking about the topic of daring to be different, and we were looking at it from a female perspective. We're with our guest, Noreen Sayed, who's an open source lead at Microsoft. Yeah?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And so when we think about daring to be different, Noreen, it's often huge thinkers who come to mind, like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or Stephen Hawking. You know, they had big ideas and seemingly larger lives. Do you think there are ways to be different and make an impact on a smaller scale?
Certainly, and I think those individuals you're referencing, they are great role models and very inspiring individuals. And when you look at them as a person, it might be overwhelming. Like, I don't think individually to make an impact, you have to do something very transformative for the entire world or make such a big impact. You can certainly do things at a smaller scale. I'll share an example with you. We know entrepreneurs, people that kind of run and own their own businesses. There's sort of another concept in the industry as entrepreneur. And I like to think of myself as an entrepreneur. So I love working for an organization, but I still like not having those rules and boundaries and feeling like I'm running my own business within the confines and walls of an organization, if you will. So every day I feel like when I go in and do things that help make a difference via technology solutions for our customers, I feel like I'm making an impact. And some of it is trying to find out and actually relate. They actually encourage us often to go out and speak to customers. I'm currently not in a customer facing role, and I still take the time to do that. Because when you do, you realize, wow, we're implementing a technology solution that's going to do X, Y, Z for healthcare and make things better or reduce patient time to see a doctor. Wow, I'm working on a project that's going to do something with the government that will make things better for a citizen. I'm going to help something for manufacturing that's going to help get products faster in the hands of customers and fulfill a need of theirs where that product helps with. So I think in a way you can kind of really start to relate where and how the technology is making a difference to everybody's lives. And at the same time, I think we can start picking impact if you're a student or a young individual within your family. If you think of impact as every conversation, every meeting with a person, you know, we're having some impact right now as we speak.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. I love that. I think it is about the way that you look at impact. It's almost like the lens that you're looking through it makes a difference on whether you think you are making a difference. Because I really like how you mentioned in the start that you don't have to be making some sort of transformation on, like, you know,
a worldwide
scale. If, you know, I think we all are making some form of transformation, whether it's huge or it's small, and you just have to be willing to see it. And so I like that you're like willing to see, like, oh yeah, if I'm doing this, then it's helping, you know, the city this way or this way or this way. And it is helping. So that's really nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's very helpful for like the youth and myself as well. Okay, so this next question, we felt it was very important to bring it up when we talk about the topic of daring to be different. And it's something that my professors have also brought up in English, because anytime you come to a place where you need to be creative, this idea of privilege becomes important. Because sometimes, you know, you need time in order to be creative. I at least that's what I think.
Of course, yeah.
And I think that can mean to a certain extent that you have privilege. So do you think there is a certain level of privilege required when taking the road less traveled? Because, you know, some people take traditional career choices because it offers them a safe path, and not everyone can risk trying something different. So then how does this affect the conversation when we're encouraging people to take chances and to, you know, to take chances and also to be creative, to think creatively? Yeah.
I think I agree and disagree, and I'll explain both. I mean, in terms of agreement, yes, there are certain times in your life where you're privileged and have more time to be creative, and it's your choice on what you do with that time. You could sit on the couch and just watch a bunch of TV shows, or you could go out and make a difference and do something. And so the number one advice I give to students oftentimes is enroll into an internship program of some sorts. If your school doesn't offer it, or you didn't happen to go into that program, again, you might feel like, well, I don't have the privilege, then create your own. When I was in high school, I was one of the students, or the years where there used to be a grade 13 in Ontario, the OAC year. And I actually called up Microsoft and I said, hi, I'm a student in grade 12 or 13 in such and such high school. Can I please come and do some sort of an internship? It doesn't have to be paid. We have a formal program. And they actually agreed and offered me a 4-month internship on their help desk. And so I was kind of imaging laptops and handing out the tools and the PCs that the staff was using at the time. But I mean, all of us have that opportunity, whether we go volunteer at a community center, call up a company. The worst someone can do is say, no, thank you, I don't need your time. So I think one form of privilege is students have is time.
Yes.
Utilize your summers, utilize your evenings, your weekends. Go find out. And it is also a time, the privilege actually pays back, where you can explore different things. So when you don't have a household of bills and things to run, you have time to, in internship programs, Waterloo's program was, you went for 4-month terms to work, and you did this 6 times. And each time I intentionally picked a different job, even if it was at the same company. Again, I didn't need to go back to the same job, because that's what you do when you grow up. You kind of do the same thing day to day. Well, when you're a student, you again have time to try out different things. Because sometimes conceptually, things seem like they're attractive and the best job in the world, and when you go try it out and you go, wow, this is not really for me, and it's not what I thought it was. And that's true for job descriptions you see posted to when you actually go execute on the job. So I think a part of that is the privilege. The other part, I think, is sometimes your mind telling you, well, I don't have the privilege to do this or that. And I don't know if, you know, minds are very powerful. And sometimes they direct. It could be your attitude. It could be justification in your mind. I'm a half full kind of girl. And so I look at everything as optimal and possible. And it's a matter of how much effort do I have to put into it to make it possible. So I would say, yes, there are certainly privileges you have with time, age, energy, all of those things, and the physiological changes in your body are still valid. But at the same time, it's also a mindset, and telling yourself that you're going to learn for life. There's no such thing as you're ever done learning. It is a growth mindset. something that you're always growing and learning will help you in that journey.
All right. Well, that's very beautiful. Thank you. And I think I'm so glad I got some sort of an answer to that, because I think it is something that I think of often as like someone who likes to write, and just in general. It's sometimes I wonder, like, oh, does this mean that, you know, we have a certain level of privilege, and is it something that everyone has? And it's something that we also had a conversation about with our English professor at a talk that he was giving. So it's really nice to be able to hear that, right? Like, maybe it is all about your mindset, and so maybe then that is to a certain extent, like, if we can see it as a mindset, then maybe that helps us see it as maybe there is an equal opportunity for everyone. I don't know. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I like that. Makes sense.
Yeah. And so I know in earlier conversations you told us that you have a traditional career, but we still want to give the youth some sort of advice if they're considering taking a non-traditional career. So what would you say to those young people who are considering non-traditional careers?
And I mean, to kind of help rephrase, I think the traditional career comes, I kind of went to STEM education, did engineering, and then I'm now working in tech industry. But I think the non-traditional part would come in is actually what I do in my day job today is marketing and solutioning, marketing, and not coding behind a screen. So you can take computer skills and classes, because those are important. Technology certainly is the future. And I do this session where I used to volunteer and go out and speak to schools about encouraging students to basically develop STEM skills. So I think those should be developed, whether they're done through formal post-secondary education or they're just done as a hobby on the side. And it's because whether you're going to be a florist, a baker, or a corporate lawyer or corporate employee, technology is going to make a difference in how you do work and how many people you can reach. And it's going to make it, and certainly help you be more successful in doing that. So I think a part of it is, and then there's people at work, let me kind of share the other side, that have done non-traditional things.
Okay.
So there's actually female colleagues and male colleagues that were a kinesiologist.
Okay.
And so they did the study in science of how body works. And yet they are working in a tech industry. There are people that, you know, studied to be a doctor, but then now are on the tech industry. And it's because what they're doing is still working within a healthcare industry and solutioning for them. So that knowledge that they got that wasn't related to tech helps them where they are now. So I think a part of it is whatever you're doing, just make sure you find your passion in it. You know, don't worry about is this the right thing, because every day should be enjoyable. And in my 12 years in Microsoft, I'm actually in my 4th different role. If you ask me, am I going to continue doing what I'm doing today? No. I'm in year 2 of my current role and likely going to change in the next few years, if not sooner. And I think there's a constant journey, because once we've learned everything, you know, it's unlike the days of our parents when we used to do one job forever and for 20, 30 years. We do change jobs more often. If anything, you're changing roles within a single company to try out different functions. And really, you might be your own blocker and barrier to what opportunities are available. Just tell yourself you can do it. Make an attempt. I mean, yes, there's a systematic process to go out and go do something different. You need to prove to the people that are going to hire you that you have some of the capabilities they're looking for. And that's when you do extracurricular activities to kind of prove that you have those skills to work towards applying for the job and going towards it. At the end of the day, I'll leave you with this one last fact. Male employees tend to apply to a job when they feel like they have 30% of the description as skills.
Okay.
Females have a much lower percentage. I think it's under 10%. They feel like they need to know much more of the job. I think about 70 or 80% to apply to the role.
Okay.
Conversely, when you compare it to 30, guys feel like they only need to know about 30% of the job to apply to it.
Okay.
So we put a higher standard on ourselves. And the way I do this, and I encourage other women to dare to be different, is I look at it as if I've got if I already know 70% of this job, why do I want to do it? It's going to be boring. So, but if I only know 30% and I've got opportunity to learn 70% of it and it's different, then that's something that's exciting and gets me out of bed in the morning.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. That's a cool way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Noreen. Thank you for joining us today and having this conversation. And is there any last thing that you'd like to leave to drive home a point about this entire topic that we've discussed today?
I mean, students, you guys are the future, students and young ones. So dare to be different. Do it in a way that's meaningful and impactful at whatever individual level. And don't be afraid, be fearless, and go chase those dreams and passions and make a difference in people's lives.
All right, so you've heard it, and thank you for joining us. Go out there and do your thing, and but come back next week to join us for another conversation with another fascinating guest. In the meantime, visit our website at myvoicecanada.com. You can write to us if you'd like to get involved. Thank you, and take care from the My Voice team on EOS.